We are officially live. Here we are again. Steve Rogers, Dave Clare, about moving forward in 2021. Mate, so good to have you back here. We had a bit of a about 2 weeks layoff, I think, haven't we?
We did, yes.
Yes, both of us got some life challenges thrown at us, and for different various reasons. But like this is anything, that's what this is all about, right? About how to move forward in 2021. And as I assure people, and I know you would do the same, that we're not immune from this because we do this for a living.
That's absolutely right. Well, we definitely got off track and didn't expect to, and I'm glad we're back on the horse, jumping back on the horse today and moving through.
Yeah, but I think that's one of the key things. And you know, as I'm going through some, there we go, focus issues. Like my life's in and out of focus. It's very, it's kind of
it, yeah.
Yeah, that you know, you're going to get stuff thrown at you as you move forward in life, right? Like the life without obstacles. What is that? You know, you're going to have obstacles, but it's quite fascinating, actually, and I'd love to get your take on this. And we'll talk about some of the challenges both you and I have had over the past couple of weeks here as we've looked at how to move forward with power, passion, and purpose into 2021. But I think I always look at there's three ways to look at obstacles that are thrown at you. So like the one that's happening to me right now with my focusing going in and out on my camera right now in the new studio is it a speed bump? Is it a hurdle, or is it a wall? Right? Now, what is a speed bump designed to do for you, Steve?
Just slow you back and refocus. Slow you down a bit.
Yeah, like a speed bump, when you're driving through the parking lot, it's just to slow you down for a second, right?
Exactly.
And a hurdle is something a little bit more challenging.
Right.
Yeah. And a hurdle is something a little bit more challenging that you have to find a way to jump over, right?
Takes more energy, but you're still going in the same direction. Absolutely.
Yeah, you're running hard forward and everything like that, and all of a sudden there's a hurdle and it can trip you up, but you got to jump high, you got to get over it. And then a wall is obviously sometimes perceived as this insurmountable, unbreakable barrier that it just stops me, right? And then with the wall, though, sometimes we need to find a way to climb over it, jump around it, knock it down, or do whatever. But you know, the wall is that more bigger, solid, almost like a boundary of sorts that we've got to break through.
Right.
But here's the interesting question. So we've got speed bumps, hurdles, and walls. Who gets to determine which one is which?
My mindset, for me, I get to determine which is which. So that's the good news. I always get the power of choice. So any other individual on it. I mean, sometimes it seems so obvious that you go, okay, that was a wall. I had nothing to do with it. And I have to remind myself, well, I can choose to then look at that as a wall or a hurdle. And I could, you know, so I get to choose, even if it is a wall, perceived by someone else.
Yeah, no, so, and here's the other cool part is what might be a wall to you might be a speed bump to me. True. So it's not for me to judge what your walls or your speed bumps or your hurdles are. They're yours to interpret for yourself, right? Because, you know, some people you see they face their obstacles in their business, you go, that's nothing. But to them, they think it's a wall. But to you, it might be a speed bump or a hurdle.
That's right. Well, and exactly right. And I had that same kind of thing come up. You know, I were talking about this before we jumped on the call, whether this was a speed bump or a hurdle or a wall I just hit. But many of us have been experiencing either via the news or businesses or television or possibly personal experience or family or friends or associates about COVID and the coronavirus. And one of the reasons we had to delay here for the last 2 weeks is I got what I thought was a little tiny speed bump. And it turned into a hurdle. And then on a couple of days, it felt like a wall where I actually got tested positive for COVID and coronavirus. And it was a gift that I got from my wife that I really wasn't expecting to get from my wife. And I'm like, gee, thanks, honey. Appreciate it. And her symptoms were like really mild. And I got the worst of this. So it's like, you know, when you're married, I guess you got to share it all. So, I mean, it plays into your point about, you know, there are definitely of those days it was 20 some odd days ago, but there was a few of those days that it felt like a wall. I mean, it did feel like splat, like, whoa, I just physically couldn't get out of bed. I was just felt like beat up and I, you know, just like no energy. And, you know, I didn't feel to the point like I'm going to die, but I have friends and associates that I know that felt to the point of where they felt they were going to die. And some of them did end up in the emergency room, you know, knock on wood. I didn't have that experience, but it was enough to slow me down. I did not have planned in my schedule, in my budget, in my strategy for the start of the new year. I mean, I had just started and finished a 3-day fast. That I was starting my 3-day fast. I was getting back on track to make sure I was healthy eating and healthy focus. And then boom, within a day or two after that, I get hit with coronavirus. So, it'll play into what you're going to be talking about today of life throws us obstacles all the time. And in this situation, it was definitely something that was partially even more elevated in my mind because of all the fear that I've heard about coronavirus. I see it on the news every day. I see it. It has changed the global world. So my fear about, the C word, sometimes we hear about the C word and we think of cancer. And I'm blessed that I haven't had cancer. I have friends and associates that have, but now it was the C word, COVID, like, oh shit, am I going to have a self-fulfilling prophecy that my fear or my anxiety over it's going to add to my health issues? And luckily I got through it. And, you and I were kidding about it. I'm going to get the t-shirt that says, I survived COVID and all I got was this lousy t-shirt. But my mindset was definitely part of me getting through this process and getting back on my mission of helping others and doing what you and I are doing today. So I know you had with your you had.
I want to explore that one little bit there. There's a really important part that you said that I think I'd like to explore. So because of all the hype that's going around about COVID, and once again, hype in a extended way, but there's a lot of talk about it, right? Some of it's propaganda, some of it's, it's hard for us to even discern what's real, but you've experienced it now. So when you when you realize that you had it, and with all the hysteria that goes around it, how much of that did that initially, like the fear of, holy crap, this is COVID and I have it, based on all what was going on in the world? And then can you just share with us how you worked your mindset through to shift? Because I reckon, maybe you didn't, but for me, I know when it first hit way back when, and I'm like, I went instantly into victim mode, but then very quickly got into victor mode and said, okay, because it's just only human nature to go, oh shit, what's happening? How am I going to deal with this? What the heck? Oh my God. And then go, hang on a second. Whoa, back the horses up. Hang on a second. Breathe. Right. So can you just talk a little bit about how that, because I think that it's the skill set in terms of how you use your mind, and get people to understand it's okay to feel that for a moment because you're human, but it's how you choose to interpret it and respond to it that makes the difference in life.
Right, exactly. Well, and that's a great share that. Yeah, for sure. Well, in addition to me having COVID, my wife had COVID. And a bunch of our extended family members during that holiday season had COVID and coronavirus that was not related to us. They got it for different reasons in different ways. And two of our family members ended up in the emergency room and were having to get breathing treatments and were very, very serious with it. So that happened about a week before mine happened. So in addition to having the local news, the national news, seeing it on television for months and months and months, and thinking I was doing all the right things, isolating, working from home, hand sanitizer, mask, etc. I get it from my wife. But the fear of it when I had it, I knew that my mind started doing the crazy monkey run and the horse out of the barn kind of thing. And I definitely was thinking, oh shit, I wonder if this is going to get worse. And so we have the oxygen tester for your finger, taking your temperature. So I found myself doing all the stuff, but beyond my own fear about it, which was fairly limited. I have to say I contained it pretty quickly. My wife elevated it for me because she was like, oh, let me check your temperature. Oh, let me check your oxygen. Oh, we've got to get this done. So I had her anxiety and fear elevating what I thought I was supposed to be experiencing. And then we had family members and friends that were going through it at the same time. So I had it outwardly and inwardly, and I had to contain it immediately that this was meant to be a hurdle and a speed bump for me, and it was not going to be a wall, that the universe was trying to tell me to slow down a little bit and go internal and to refocus and read and to relax and let my body just stop and do what it's supposed to do. So I immediately, as soon as I started getting any fear that went too far, I immediately did just use my skills of meditation or prayer or everything happens for a reason and pulled it back in. So I never got too far out of any time period that I was really anxiety ridden over it. But a lot of people that knew that I had it, then immediately with text messages and Facebook and different stuff, they start, oh my God. And my mom who's 83, my mom, 83 years old, who used to be a nurse, is texting or calling me every other day. Oh, have you done this? Have you done that? So it also goes to, in life, everyone always has an opinion when you're doing something. When you're starting a new business, when you're starting a new product, if you're sick, if you're in a relationship. So I had to realize people are giving me their opinions because they love me and they want me to be okay. And I could only take their opinion, their comment, or their fear into my psyche deep enough and appreciate it and then let it go. because had I let that embed on me, it would have been a wall for me versus just a speed bump and a little bit of a hurdle on a few days.
Yeah, and that's a really great point. So in life, make sure that you don't allow other people to turn your speed bumps into hurdles and your hurdles into walls.
Yes, absolutely. But it was a great lesson because it was, it took through that this is a serious thing that's happening in the world, and there are people dying from this. So I knew instantly, in my just gut, I was not going to be one of those people. I'm not going to be one of those people. But there were a few days that I went, what if I am? I mean, there was a few times I allowed myself to explore that. And said, wow, what if I did end up getting to a breathing situation and I had to go to get ventilation and blah, blah, blah. The cool thing about it, and I've had 2 or 3 death experiences before that were even more serious than this, I was okay with that. It's like meaning I believe that we need to live our life every day to the fullest. And if you're living your life as full as you can up until that day, and accepting yourself for who you are and still having your mission to go forward, I was okay if that was going to be my last week or last day. Like I knew that I was not going to have regrets. I'm not finished. I'm not done by any means. But it was interesting to have that thought again about life and death and morality and purpose. And I think we have those things in our lives or in the global world right now to remind us again about what is important, what's focused, what are the big rock items when you do have your health at a top level. So I looked at it as a blessing every day that it was happening, even though some days I just felt like crap. I just really felt like shit and I felt beat up. I knew that there was a blessing in this somewhere, right? So I always look at things that way.
Yeah, but that's, like I said, that's when you switch from victim mode to victor mode, and from this is happening to me to this is happening for me. When you consciously make that choice, and then you start looking then for, what are the lessons to learn here? You don't learn lessons when you're the victim. You only learn lessons when you're seeking to be the victor. Right. Absolutely. So how much did your past, because I know you've shared with me before, and even on the podcast we did, you shared that whole life story, and you've had some of those near-death experiences in your life. How much of that were you able to lean on that and in this situation?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I definitely know that I have come to the death door more than one time, and each time I've explored it, it has gone to deeper research for me with my internal self. And so I didn't have to go there as long. Like I got there much quicker. Yeah. Having those experiences, I already been down those pathways and those doorways and those fear modes and what would that mean? So I immediately got to the piece of it, meaning the comfort and peace of it, way faster than I would have the first or second time where I had to kind of question my own morality or question my own health. So it definitely helped me. I mean, I think the more we have experiences in life, even with death versus life, I do think it prepares us for that reality that it will eventually be that one day. Like eventually I won't be here. I think it definitely helped me to put it in perspective in a very quick, swift way, and then allowed me to do something about my mindset about it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that's really cool. And that's why I wanted to share that, because there's so many experiences that we have in life that if we deny them, then we can't leverage them going forward. Because I think those experiences, the more that we can embrace them, understand them, interpret them, and then, it's like not trying to forget them, but it's trying to understand them. And then so we go, and that was the same when we went through this whole crisis when it first started happening back in March and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh my God, what if I lose all my clients? And, I had that same experience back in the GFC. Back when the global financial crisis hit, and I virtually lost every single client I had. All right, but my ability to turn around and come back from that, then when this happened, said, well, Dave, you've been through this before. If that's the case, you're still here today. You've survived it. You'll find a way.
That's right.
And I was able to leverage and tap into that experience and use that way back in March.
Exactly. Well, I mean, I think and I had similar experiences. You and I have talked about this before. I mean, I was at a corporate company that I climbed the ladder for 15 years, got to the top of the ring, and then I was fired after the mortgage meltdown in 2008. So that talk about a brick upside the head that I thought was a wall that turned into a massive opportunity. But it's interesting our parallels here in the last few weeks, because I had an unexpected hurdle, speed bump, and wall, and you had a chosen one where you had chosen to make a move. And in that move, there's excitement, there's also hurdles within that, right? So it's kind of interesting that yours like was planning for something, and even with the planning, there was still stuff that happened or created speed bumps or hurdles in the anticipated choice that you made, right?
Correct. And I'm still dealing with that right now as we hear. But actually, the initial so for everyone watching, yes, we've moved the headquarters, as I call it, the home office headquarters, which is home quarters HQ, and we've relocated to actually a much nicer facility. And it turns out, giving my home office, my business room to expand within my home, which is great. Because I'm all about distributed working, and I can work anywhere and everything, like which I've done for the past 3 years. Our decision to move wasn't ours, though. Okay, so we were renting a property, and the landlord needed to sell the property for various reasons, and so therefore we had to vacate the premise. Right. But so we're like, oh crap! Now what do we have to do?
Right, now what?
Yeah, but once again, this was, as you talk about moving forward and everything like that, and how do you take power first, which is the first thing. So how do I regain the power if I feel like this has been ripped out from underneath me? I just had the other studio set up. I had a reason. It was adequate. It was working. It wasn't perfect. It came with its challenges and its own hurdles and stuff like that, the way we were living. But then as we decided to make that move, we said, okay, well, we're going to have to find somewhere else. What we did is reprioritize. We need to find a house that allows me to expand the business in, and then provide us some of the lifestyle things that we like to have. Now, that was really fascinating because at that time here in West Australia, Steve, anyone in West Australia who might be aware, who's watching this would be well aware, the real estate and rental market has gone crazy. We are at our lowest vacancy rate in, I think, all time, like less than 0.5% vacancy rate of properties. So rental property prices are going up, the choices are narrowing, and there's 20 or 30 people lining up to find properties. And here we are, leading into Christmas, New Year, like that, and having to find a new place to live, and with everything that's going on crazy in the world, the business is expanding rapidly. And so once again, we had to look at how to process that. And I said, well, instead of seeing this as a pain in the butt at this time of year, this is one of our biggest opportunities for me to finally have that extra space that we need, as the business has already doubled and expanded. So now I got space for my team to meet. I can bring clients in. I've even got a little al fresco area out the front of my place that I can sit down and have an outdoor chat with people. Like the whole way this house that we've managed to acquire is perfect for now, because whatever's perfect today may not be perfect tomorrow. But the point being, which is really cool, is that as we went through this, I decided to say, well, how can we take this as an opportunity rather than as a interruption? And so there was that part. Now we're actually in the house, which we moved in only 3 days ago, and then we've had my daughter's engagement party, Australia Day. We've had people here all, and this is the first session I've actually been able to do in the new studio. But we're having, internet challenges here as we're getting everything all set up, with the camera getting all focus and lighting, and these are all small speed bumps to me. These are my speed bumps, though.
Right.
And these are just the annoying little mosquitoes. Just
smat one, yeah.
Yeah, but unfortunately, you can get Ross River virus, malaria, and all that from mosquitoes. So you should make sure.
That's true.
Yeah. So once again, depending on how you interpret things, but so it's been, this whole last 2 weeks has been nowhere, once again, blessed, nowhere near as challenging as what you've had to go through in health and life and that. But lifestyle-wise and business, the interruption, but it was planned in terms of, once we knew it was very well orchestrated. The move, everything like that, the way the office was set up, that was the first thing, come in, so I could get fully functional again. At least some capacity, but with modern technology, I can run all my business off my phone now. Where I've got, I've decided to set the business up, so technically, as long as I had my phone, I could run my whole business still. And that's
an empowering understanding when you realize that, and then it's actually in function. Like to hear that phrase that you can actually run your entire business from the palm of your hand by connecting with others. And it is changing the way people are doing businesses with brick and mortars and business models and opportunities and products and services, which are some of the stuff we'll evolve into talking about today. And then also next week about, what if you're in that spot and you're going through these chosen choices that have, speed bumps and then hurdles and walls. And what if you get into situations this coming year that are unexpected, that you have, your own health issues, you have, relationship issues, you have financial issues. I mean, they're going to be here for all of us, whether it's global or it's just in a country or a state or a city or a neighborhood or in your own backyard or in your own psyche. So I think that it's great that you and I are sharing, whether I'm in San Diego or you're in West Australia, we have the similar things in life as human beings do, and having these formulas and processes in motion and understanding for your business or your personal life is really a way to realize that's okay. That's cool. The chaos can be going on around me and I can still be focused on what I'm here to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's this whole thing about how do you find certainty in the uncertainty. Well, like that, I was very certain about the things I need to, and I was certain that even if the internet screwed up, that I could use my mobile data, and if I had to put this up here and live stream through my camera on here, I had that. I know I could do that. That wasn't ever going to be a problem. So to make this happen was not going to be a question. Could I make it happen the way I'm making it happen right now? That wasn't too certain. But I was certain that I could do it off my phone. If I had to with my tripod, which I have in here as well, it was all set up, ready to go in case this failed. And same thing, my laptop or my Surface Pro, I can hotspot it. I could do, so I was all good to go.
You were ready. You had a plan B and C.
Yeah, so I just had and it's like anything. I always look at what's my worst case scenario. Like, and I think we might have talked about that last session, is like anything in life like this, I go, what's my worst case scenario? And then can I make peace with that worst case scenario? And if I can, then I can move forward and do whatever the heck I need to do. Because if I can make peace with whatever my worst case scenario is, and it's like if I lost everything here and even lost all my clients and stuff, and I had to go pump coffee at the local thing and become a barista, would I do that? I'm like, yes. So if that's my worst case scenario, or I could access government funding or do whatever I need to do to at least keep a roof over our head and food in our mouths until I rebuilt again, then why wouldn't I go after what I want? If I'm okay and I can make peace with my worst case scenario. The challenge for a lot of people is they get the trappings of success and they're not willing to make peace with the worst case scenario because they don't want to lose everything they have. So in order to gain something greater in life, you might have to sometimes let go of, it's like you can't grab the great unless you let go of the good, right? So it's, so if you have things that are really good in your life, then either you're going to settle for that good that you have, but if you want to go after greatness, you might have to put the good at risk.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally.
And if you want to put the good at risk, then you have to make peace with what the worst case scenario could be. And here, same thing, simple, even as a small thing, is worst case scenario is I can make peace. I would put on my tripod, I'll do this, I'll plug my phone in. Will it be ideal? No, because I won't be able to see as much as I can see on the big screen, but we could still do our live stream today. And there's still a good chance because I can see my screen glitching a little bit and things that the internet might drop out in the middle of all this. But you know what? We'll find a way through that. It'll just be a temporary delay, and I'll pull the phone up, and we'll just get back on the mobile data, and we'll have no problems.
Exactly. That's exactly right. All about mindset and having that in formulas and processes. So do you want to jump into, last week we were talking about that, where people are at, wherever they're at in their own mindset, in their own business, and saying, if you're here and you want to be here, what's the gap and what's the distance? And how do you go from here to here? And in what processes can you do that? So if you are looking to scale your business, if you're looking to start a new business, if you're looking to streamline it, if you're looking to completely change careers, if you're looking to change the world in some new different way, or you're doing it the same way and you just need to have more people understand what you're doing, all these processes are all applicable. So I'm going to let you pilot today, and I'm going to co-pilot with you because I know you've got some great wisdom and some imaging and cool markers and boards you want to use as getting expressions out.
I'm going to go from high tech to low tech to one of my favorite pieces of technology. When everyone says, "What's the greatest piece of technology that ever changed your life?" To me, it's this one, the whiteboard.
And how many times do we use that phrase about, hey, let's have a clean whiteboard? I mean, even in discussions and conversations about, hey, if you had a clean whiteboard, or hey, let's start from scratch and pull out a whiteboard, or let's have a whiteboard session. Good old whiteboard. Yeah,
absolutely. Like, to me, it's ideally, in an ideal world, my whole wall would be just whiteboard. I'd be like, this mad scientist scribbling all over the walls in my
I had a couple of clients of mine actually that had, when you go into their conference rooms, their entire wall is like that. It's just the painted white or the gray or the black wall. and they had markers, and you just set up on the wall. It's like when you were a little kid and you'd write on the walls, and your parents would get mad at you. This was encouraged to go write on the walls, which is a great freeing experience.
Yeah, no, actually, one of my clients up in Geraldton, West Australia, Glasgow, they, in their boardroom, their glass and glazing company, right? So they inspire design for a brighter future through glass. Their boardroom is all those that we'll call it the frosted or milky, but they're all glass sliding doors, and the whole wall is lined, and then they've got the windows on the other side, and they've got the frosting on them, and it's all they just whiteboard all over. You walk in there, and it's just like, yeah, it's crazy. And they can just slide the panels, move them all across, and
that's cool.
Yeah, really, really cool. So I get a little bit envious when I go there, but the good news is they let me draw all over their walls and stuff, so which is neat. All right. So you shared some awesome stuff with us, and I think the first foundation about moving forward with power, passion, and purpose into 2021. Really about getting that personal wheel of life, and then make sure we understand that where we're at, where there, and then we also talked about the business wheel of life, right? And with that, and then we talked about making sure that you're this whole thing about balance, which is interesting. But when you're a small front wheel, you're looking down. When you have a big front wheel, you're looking up. But how do you create it so that you can, get some sense of consistency in your personal and business life? I'd rather call it than balance. I like harmony and rhythm, like anything in riding, and it's about getting your rhythm going when you're riding a bike, right? Especially if you're a triathlete or whatever, it's getting in stride and getting your rhythm going. And there's sometimes you have to put your head down when you're pushing hard, and there's sometimes you can look way down in the distance, and most times you're just keeping your eye out in front. But the really cool thing that you showed us all in that last session was once by actually pinpointing where you think you are. So if I'm a 5 out of 10 in my, let's say, business life, just go here, I'm a 5 out of 10 in business life. What that instantly tells us is that you know what a 10 is.
That's right.
Because you've had to compare that 5 to something. So in your mind, or in your heart and mind, you know what a 10 is. And right now, based on that, you're a 5. Right? So you've created this gap in terms of where things are at. So what I want to share with people is a simple process about how you can use actually the same process that made you a 5 to help you move towards being a 10.
Yeah, and in the business wheel and in the personal life, we broke that down. So for anybody who's thinking that's too broad, in your own business, as all of you are aware, you've got lead generation and marketing and staff, et cetera. So in those categories, you could also school it from there. But Dave's principles and process is going to go through works in any of those. And what we'll do for those of you that didn't make the first session where we laid some of this foundation, after we hang up here, we could probably share the link from the first session we did right after this, so people could go see that if they wanted to. And then we can build upon this, and then next week we'll have conclusions. But take it away. I'm interested to hear.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's a really great point, because this will apply to any area of, from client servicing to lead generation to marketing to production to operations to you name it, whatever, from a business point of view, and anywhere in life. This is the science and magic behind it all. Okay, so I just want to start with how we got to be a 5 or whatever, wherever you rated yourself. So once you know where we are, how do we get to be where we are in life? Okay, so that whatever success, however you choose to define that, you're currently enjoying in life right now, right, which is, say, the 5, has come from your results. And your results are basically, if I look at here, is all the things that I have. Okay, so I have these things, which then culminates in my picture of success, right? Now that could be tangible and intangible things. And then what we know about results is that how I act, right?
Hey, Dave, for sake of the audience, maybe you should make my face smaller, because I don't need to see me, so we can see more of your board. It's cutting off a little bit of your board there.
Oh, is it? Okay, on my side it didn't look like that. Sorry.
I don't know if
just take
yeah.
That. Steve's still here, everybody. Don't panic. He's still here in the background. Okay, so I might even get rid of this red pen because that won't show up right enough. See, little small things that can happen while you're moving. Okay, so our actions, right, or how we behave. If I take and do these things, I get these results. It gives me this picture of success. And Steve, you and I would be well aware of the old expression. If you do what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always gotten. Mm-hmm. And therefore, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a new result.
That's right.
Right. So this is where it comes from. This is just based out of human behavior. So if I want to have new results, but I keep doing the same thing over and over, I'm going to get the same results, right? So insanity happens when I think if I keep doing this, I'm going to get that. But what I'm actually going to get is this, is what I already have. Right. And what people need to also understand in this process when looking at getting whatever success you have and the results that you've achieved that create that picture of success from these behaviors is that our attitudes or how we think determines how we act, right? So you would have heard, as a man think and grow rich, I think, therefore I am, right? These are all things that tell us that our attitudes are just our habits of thinking. So whatever thinking I have is what drives my behavior. So how I think determines how I act. Now then, if that's the case, well, how did we get the attitudes that we have then? Well, they've been conditioned into us through a process of spaced repetition of a bunch of inputs from parents, teachers, media, society, you name it, as we were growing up. People's opinions that we valued, that we've repetitively heard, have conditioned the way we think about things, causes us to behave in a certain way, and then gets the results we're getting and culminates in our picture of success. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense. And that process, we get sometimes so stuck in it, and we know that because we've heard some of this stuff before, in whether we, classes, workshops, mentors, but we don't implement it, meaning that we don't realize that, okay, I think that my results and my behavior and my success are going to be different. And sometimes we expect that because we're expecting other people to change besides us changing. So we're waiting for, whether that's in your relationship with a spouse or a partner or whomever, or it's employees or your own work environment. So again, it comes back to what you were saying earlier in the call about the power of choice. And the power of choice plays into every single one of these categories that you have listed here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is really important to understand, that this process works by default and circumstance, which is how most people have used it, or by design. There's you remember the TV show ER?
Oh, sure. Yep.
With George Clooney, Anthony Edwards, Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, and a whole bunch of those people. I think, no, she wasn't. It was somebody else. But anyway, the old show ER, right? So there's a really cool scene, and I always remembered it because it was so powerful to me and it's a great example of conditioning. And there's George Clooney is this philandering kind of womanizer, doctor, and who couldn't hold a steady relationship. And he has a scene with his dad, and that's the way his dad was. He cheated on his mother all these times, and he's blaming. The scene's about him blaming his dad, and he's saying, I've realized I'm you. I've become you. And the dad, in his wisdom, turns around and says, "Son, you can blame me for the child that you were, but you're a man, and you get to choose who you want to be as a man." And so what he's saying there is basically, yes, I can accept the fact that I conditioned the beliefs and everything into you as a child, but this process, you can start to choose to change your inputs anytime you like. Right? Because, this conditioning influences on us as when we're children, as 2 to 5 years old, or whatever the studies suggest that most of our conditioning influences happen there. It's just this process. Right? Now, unfortunately, most people today are getting their inputs and everything like that from social media, or young kids today through their tablets and their iPads and various other things. We almost have like the electronic babysitter as the digital babysitter now, and you have to be very careful, because this is, anyone who has children, this is what you're doing to your kids every day. But the beauty of this as an adult is we have the ability at any stage to decide to change the inputs. The problem is, this is how we learn to walk and talk, ride a bike, drive a car, everything like that, right? Learn to read. And then when a child's learning to walk, Steve, as you've got your grandchildren now, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So when your child was learning to walk, or he or she's learning to walk, they'll take some steps, and you'll encourage them. Hey, keep going, love. You can do it. You keep going, and then they'll fall down, right? And then we tell them to get back up again, and they'll fall down again, and then we help them get back up again, and eventually they're up and talking, walking, and running, and everything like that. But a child will fall down 50 times when it's learning to walk, and at no stage will it go, "This walking crap ain't for me."
Yeah, because
right? As an adult, right? But as an adult, if you had to learn to walk as an adult now, you'd be like, "That's too hard." Or if you fall down, people will laugh at me. I'm afraid to make mistakes. So when we look at this process here, if we want to get new results in life, well, the mindset, this is what you were talking about before, is so important, because if you want new results, well, then you have to behave differently. That means you have to think differently, which is your mindset. Well, we need a new mindset. Well, how do we get a new mindset? Well, we need to think about what would success look like? What results would I like to have? What behaviors would I have in place that would drive that? And then what's the new attitude that I would need to have in place to drive that behavior? Because I don't know if you've seen it in a lot of the clients you deal with in businesses, Steve. Have you seen that they I always say to people, there's only two ways to get these new results. One is to shift your thinking, and the other way is to work longer and harder than you ever have. Which one do you think is happening more today? People are shifting their thinking, or they're working longer and harder than they ever have?
Well, I think they're doing a combination of both, actually, but I think they're working
hopefully
longer and harder. But I think this COVID and this global epidemic has made people aware that there are different ways to do things unexpectedly. So I think that got thrown in as a speed bump that became a very positive speed bump in that behavior category.
Yeah, but pre-COVID, what would you have said?
Working harder.
Yeah, because all I see is more people working longer and harder than they ever had prior to COVID. Right? And so this is why, because they want, how much pressure on us is there in organizations to get more results?
Yeah, it's continual.
New results, higher level, grow, you need to grow, keep growing. But so it's really understanding that these inputs that we've received over time through spaced repetition has conditioned the way we think about things, which drives this behavior and gets us these results and culminates in our picture of success, whether we're enjoying that or not in life. So this is how we got to be a 5. If we want to be like an 8 and there's a new picture of success, all we have to do is be able to define what does that success look like. And here's where I guess the magic to the science works. If we look at success is who do we need to be then to have those results that we would like to have? Because it would be fair to say that you're not the person you need to be to get those results, because or else you'd already have them. So it's more about and we talk about this in goal setting. It's it's not really the achievement of the goal. It's about who you become through the process of setting and achieving the goal that makes the biggest difference in your life. Like if you want to have that new car or whatever, and you have to save money up and do these sorts of things, and the disciplines and the organization and the budgeting and stuff like that you need to do to save your money to be able to go buy that car if you wanted to buy it for cash. Well, that's more about who you've become, and since you've demonstrated you can be disciplined and organized and save, and that then actually getting the car. The car is wonderful, but it's actually who you become through the process. So we would need to look at who do we need to become then to have those results. And here's the magic. If you look at the word behave, it's just be and have together. So then we go, well, what behaviors would I need to demonstrate to achieve that? And this is where most people stop. Instead of going, well, hang on, what's the thinking that would drive those behaviors? Then if I take that here and I use the same process, and I go with spaced repetition to condition a new way of thinking to drive the right behaviors, get the results and success that I'm looking for. Okay, because here, this behavior gets that, this behavior gets that. So it's the same process that you can use. All you have to do is decide to change the inputs. But what you need to identify is what does success look like? So what is a 10 or an 8, whatever it is you want to be, what does that look like? What results, how would you know? So how would you measurably know that you've achieved those things? And then what behaviors would you need to do that? And then this is the step that most people forget. Well, what thinking, what are the habits or attitudes or the mindset that I would need to have of someone who behaves like that? So if I look at you as an example, and I want to be a lot more spiritually connected to my own higher energy as like yourself is, well, I would look at Steve and go, what are the things he does? Well, he meditates, he does yoga, he does this sort of stuff. So for me, if I look at that in my life, I go, well, if I want to have those sort of results and everything like that, well, there's some examples of some behaviors. But how do you think, what's the thinking that you have that drives that? I would need to start worrying about what that is. And then over a period of time, use the same process. But we live in a society, Steve, where people want the instant results now. But there is no shortcuts to results. This is why all the other gurus and experts out there will tell you it's about the work. You got to do the work. You got to be willing to do the work. Well, the work is on you, and it's the same process that made you who you are today that you use to make you who you want to be tomorrow. You and I have both lost a lot of weight in over that time. It takes you some time to put on weight. Unfortunately, it takes you less time to put on weight than it does to lose it. But if it took you 4 months to get overweight, well, why do you think you can lose all that weight in 4 days? It's a process. But and we need to be patient. You need to be urgently patient about the becoming who we need to become. But if you want it too fast, it's not going to happen. If you're worried about what other people think, that's why a lot of people don't worry about other people will think. Because if you fall down, people might laugh at you. Or if you hit what is a hurdle, and they think it's a speed bump, and then they laugh at you about it, like you're taking this out of context. Well, then you're probably going to give up. And this is why people continually give up on stuff, because it's too hard. Or what will everybody else think? You know, can you imagine trying to learn something new at a later age of life? Like I'm almost 55 in another month or two, and people are going, oh, but I try to learn a new skill, and if I suck at it at start, well, people are going to, you're too old. Why bother to learn that? They're going to try and beat me down. And if I listen to their opinions, then I won't achieve what I want to achieve in my life. Or if I'm afraid of looking like an idiot, then I won't do it either. So this is the whole process, how it works. So the main thing we need to be able to do in this is how do we then, what I call coach the gap, right? Because here's the gap. Because if you're working with someone, and this would be with your client, Steve, I know you'd be like this too. If you've identified what the success that they would like to have, the results and the behaviors, okay? So you know how they should be behaving as a leader or whatever in the organization, right? And you know what results that would get and the success that they want, correct?
Yeah.
So when you see them behave in a different way to what the ideal behaviors are, these ones we've identified, okay, you see them behave over here, you go, hang on, that's not the behavior that we agreed that would drive these results. Okay?
Right.
And you already know what thinking is required to drive this behavior. So we know this. So tick, we know this, we know this, we know this. What don't we know? This. So all we have to do whenever I'm coaching with anybody, and this anyone from doing any coaching, if you already identified the behavior that will drive the right results and the thinking that's required for that, you see this behavior. What you don't know is what they were thinking. So this is where we need to talk to and this is where you talk to yourself, or if you're having someone help you to move from a 5 to the 10, you're not always going to behave or think like the 8. Let's say if you want to go for an 8 out of 10 now, you're never going to always think like an 8 to start with, to drive the 8 behaviors to get the 8 results and the 8 success. Sometimes you're going to fall back to a 5 behavior.
Right.
So what we need to go, well, talk to me about the 5 thinking that you had then. What were you thinking? And not like, oh my God, what were you thinking? But like, hey, talk to me about what you were thinking there. Because once I know what your thinking is, I can go, okay, now I know, to your point before, where they are now and where they want to be in terms of their thinking. How do I help coach the gap in the thought process from here to here? Because all I have to worry about is I know if I get them thinking more and more and more in alignment to this, they'll start behaving more and get the results and success that they want. I can use incentives and fear and all that to drive a different behavior, but that's short term, right? This is where like people talk about motivation. Well, you can yell and scream at somebody and they'll do it for a little while, or you can dangle a carrot and they'll go after it. But after a while, those are both temporary forms of motivation. The only true form of motivation is attitude motivation, or internal, right? Because motivation is an internal thing. So how can I help you coach the gap in your thinking? And this is where, if you want to move from a 5 in one area of life to an 8, well, how would an 8 think? And then every time I see you behave outside of what an 8 would think and do, then it tells me that you're thinking like a 5 again. And all I need is go, well, talk to me about that. And then what would you need to do differently? How does that look? And that to me is the simplicity of it all. Is here's how we got to be who we are. It's the same process to be who you want to be. All you have to do is choose to change the inputs by design. So design that 8 out of 10 that you want to go after. And then all you need to do is coach the gap in the thinking between a 5 thinking and an 8 thinking. Because when more times I can move you to an 8 thinking, the more times you'll behave like an 8 and get the results of an 8 and a success that is an 8.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me tie in to that, and let me share a screen and then tie in the images that we used last time that tie right into, again, bringing this back for people on. Let's see here. So this one, I don't know if you can see my screen or not.
I can bring that up. Hang on 2 seconds. Oops. I have to add. There we go.
Can you see
it?
There
we are. Yep, it's all there now.
So all the processes you were talking about the, having the attitude, and then all the way up the food chain to then what the definition of success is. So as you're looking at these things in your life, and then going back to, we talked about having this wheel of life here too. So if you started, say, where am I at now? So as Dave was saying, you have to have a definition of what an 8 or a 10 would be, versus if you think you're a 4 or 1 on your fitness or your family or your friends, or if you're doing your business wheel on your vision, your goals, your whatever it might be. So as Dave was saying, you have to know what that is that you anticipate being an 8 or a 10. And if you're not there, then why do you have that definition of what that is that you're not there? So again, you have to have that awareness. And then once you have the awareness, you know that you can apply those things about attitude and results and behavior, and then ultimately success in each of these categories. So whether you're working on here on the left, like if you're working on your spiritual connection, or your financials with your family, or your relationships with your spouse, or you jump over here on the right, and in your business, whatever business you're in, whether you're an employee or you're an executive, or you're an entrepreneur, or you're a consultant, all businesses, I don't care if you're selling donuts at a coffee shop and you own the coffee shop, or you're a administrative assistant at a corporate company, or if you're a CEO of a new startup. All of those businesses that make any kind of money have these categories in it. Whether you have to have sales, you have to have marketing, you have to have some type of customer support, HR. So whether it's very small or very big, and then your mission, your value. So all of those things that you're talking about, Dave, fit into here in every single one of these slices of the pie. That same process would apply to all of these. And so if you don't know what attitude you have to get to that piece, because you haven't modeled it, that's why it's so crucial to have mentors, or to have guides, or to have people that you look up to, or if you anticipate how others are where you're not. That's why in my lifetime, I've always had other people that I've gone, okay, what do I think they have? What do I think that they're doing to achieve that? How did they get there? And could I model some of their behaviors and then back into what their attitudes might be? And then the other piece of that is the success item. I think at the very top of this, one of the things I've learned too later in life, and I wish I would have learned it earlier in life, but I didn't, and that's the timing of how it's a process, not an event, is
you learned it when you're supposed to.
Yeah, you do. You absolutely learn things when you're supposed to. But it's the, okay, what then? Like you were talking about having the car, or having the success measures that we all have. It's that, okay, what then? If I have the car, if I have the house, if I have the bank account that has so many zeros in it, if I have the retirement account that has this, if I have the grandkid that looks like this, then what? Meaning, then what will happen in your life? What's the result that you're looking for? What's the fulfillment? And are you defining your success by other people's definition? And if it's, if you go, then what happens? Then what happens? So if you're going to this thing, and sometimes people go, well, I don't know. It's like, why do we want what we want? So I think sometimes the bigger piece for us to do on all of this is to challenge our own definitions of not what society's definition of success is, but what our own inner talk of our own spiritual soul connection and voice of what we define success to be, and then being brave enough to put that as one of your goal items of success, possibly termed in a different way, and then carve same exact levels that you had here with your attitude, your behavior, results, so that you're really, really, really defining, why do you want to make $1 million? Why do you want to have a house by the ocean? Why do you want to, okay, those are all wonderful things. I'm not saying you shouldn't have them, but what's the reason for it? What's the outcome once you have it? And then what do you believe is going to be different in your life of happiness or joy and fulfillment once you have those things versus what you have now, and just accepting what you have right now is maybe enough in some areas of key categories.
Oh, 100%. And I think that's such a valid point. Like, the tangible versus intangible things. It's not necessarily, like I said, it's not about the results, it's about who you become through the process of doing that matters most. If you want $1 million house, great. Why? If it'll make you happy to have $1 million home, well, then you're relying on external circumstances to make you happy. How would you find happiness from within? And if you're happy from within, you probably find then actually, and this is most extremely successful people, they're just so focused on being of service or doing whatever that fills them with joy, that the money comes to them, or they have all these things because they're not going after that. They're going after, the internal happiness. And when I'm happiest, I'm of service to other people, and and then things come my way. It's quite funny how the universe works. Funny, but it's not funny. Because it's so simple. But if we embraced it, we'd be quite surprised at how much our lives might change. Because I know that's what happened for me 3 years ago when I sat down and look, I just said, like, how can I be better of service to this world? And no different when COVID hit. That was the thing. What now? How can I be of service in this time? And it was just more about, like, how am I going to survive? That was the initial thought. Like, oh crap, okay, scrap that. Victor mode. This is happening for me. And I wrote on my whiteboard, my bigger whiteboard I have, which I can think about 4 or 5 whiteboards. And it was like, what now? How can I be of service in this world now?
Right.
And then as I looked at that, and I wrote opportunity on the whiteboard, and I started mapping all the things there. And then I pursued those things because those are the things that would give me joy, because I get great satisfaction out of helping other people, great enjoyment out of that. And it's one of my simple life philosophies, actually, which is I give to get. And people think, well, that sounds selfish. And I said, well, no, there's only 2 ways I can be happy in life. That means, Steve, you can give me something. Oh, that's nice. It makes me happy. Or I can give you something. And that makes me happy. Which one can I control? You giving me something or me giving you something?
Yeah, you can only control what you're giving and offering the world or others, for sure.
Correct. Right. So if I want to always be happy, I just keep giving.
It's true.
So I give to get happy.
That ties into the phrase servant leadership, or in that servant leadership mindset. And what I found, and I have the same path that you have as well, that if in my business, if in my life purpose, I can do stuff that is being of service to others, that is defined by me through a higher power of what I call God and God energy, then that's where I'm guided by then how my life can be used in purposes of all of those wheels that I showed you earlier. All that is still energy that can be used as a vehicle to still help others through business or through communication or through whatever product or service you have. And just like in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where it's got the pyramid that goes to the top, you got to have food and water, and you got to have survival, and then you go from there to the next levels. But the very top one, I think, is the word that's self-actualization, and really, where you're actualizing really that point, and where most people seem to levels, when you get to levels of success, whether we determine it's financial or celebrity or sports or whatever it might be, most people, when they get there, they then find, either because of being of service, that's why they got there, or once they're there, it's emptier than they thought, and to fulfill that void, then they start becoming even more, hopefully, of self-actualization, of giving more to others and doing things for other people and giving things away, and being, philanthropy, not in just money, but in mindset. So I think for all of us on this journey of understanding these mindsets and behaviors and attitude and results and operations and businesses, it really is just this process to how we can connect with other human beings in a better way, that is being more of service and giving in a way that's more valuable, that gets you something in return, which is usually happiness and peace and fulfillment. So I know that your motive is not to, yes, you want to make money, yes, you want to be in a financially strong, abundant, wonderful place, but if you're giving to others, then that is it becomes more of the byproduct versus the meaning of it, or the reason for it. So I think that plays perfectly into your process that you have there.
Yeah, absolutely. Because once again, whatever success is, and then all that stuff becomes the byproduct. Like I say, to me, this is what's most important, is about who I become in the process. And part of who I want to become is a very happy, successful, whatever my definitions of those things are, human being that contributes positively to this planet while I'm here. Well, then great. How would I know that I've done that? What results would I start to see if I was becoming that person, and then how would that person think, and work through that. So the last thing I want to quickly share with everybody is, I'm going to share my screen now, is I've got a little simple tool that I've created. So hopefully, if I go, that should be in there. There we go. I don't know if I can make this bigger. Let's see. Yeah, it's about as big as I can make it for the moment. But when you talk about coaching the gap, I don't know if you can see that at all, but here about this thinking, how do we move this thinking to that thinking? And once I've identified, like I say, I know what behavior we want, I know the thinking that we want, I can see the behavior demonstrated, I know it's not in alignment, therefore it tells me the thinking is not in alignment. Well, then, okay, well, what I need to understand is what was the thinking that I had. Now, this tool here is really simple. It's just coaching questions to help you discover the answers through coaching the gap, as I call it. It's almost like a tool you can actually use to coach yourself if you want. It's just a mindset tool, right? So one of my clients asked me, Dave, can you just spit out all the questions that you would normally ask us onto a template so we can use that? And I'm like, yeah, didn't I? Sure, I'll find a way. And so I created this simple tool here. But if you look at it, basically what it is no different what we're talking about, Steve. If you look at I look at the process for thinking. So where am I? Present state. Where do I want to be? Future state. How am I going to get there? Process. Why do I want to be there? Intent. And then what's my part in it? Accountability. So if I want to ask a question about present state, future state, process, so where am I, where I'd like to be, how am I going to get there, or why, or what's my role in it? And then I use the traditional good open-ended questions that we've learned over the years of, what's I'm trying to do on the screen up there. So I've got all these ones here. And then if I want to, I'll bring it down to here. And if I look at the types of questions, well, who? So I'm looking at present state, well, who does this impact currently, right? Or what happened? Or where are we now? When did it happen? Why is this happening now? How does it look now? So these are all these are just prompts and triggers, right? And then if you want to find out the future state, well, who will this impact? What needs to happen? Where do you see this going? When do you see it changing? Why do we need to change it? How should it look? So as you go through this, if you're working with someone to help them close the gap, these are just simple fundamental questions to help understand what they are thinking. So I use this as a simple template to go, well, I need to understand what this person is thinking. What are they thinking about, in terms of their motivation here as to, if they're doing something, well, what caused that to happen? So I want to know what you're thinking. So tell me, I'm trying to understand their motivation. Well, what caused this to happen? Where did that come from?
Right. Absolutely.
Why did it happen?
That's right.
And one of the simple things I use, especially with leaders who are coaching other team members or leaders who are coaching new leaders or supervisors, for example, in organizations is, and I had this with one of my clients, one of their floor managers kept coming up to the operations manager and saying, oh, this isn't working and that's not working. And he didn't know how to handle it. I said, here's one simple question you should ask him. Who is responsible for that? And he asked that question. He goes, well, I am. He goes, well, if you're responsible for that, then what would it look like if you took action on it? Where do you see things going? And then he goes, David, he took from the very first, you don't have to do these in any order. He just took the top right-hand corner. Who is responsible? I am. Okay, great. Now I know who owns it. Then he can start asking them, where do you see it? Where is it? What do you think we need to do to get there? And then help that person, instead of telling them what to think, he helped them discover the thinking that would drive the right behaviors to get the results and success that they were looking for.
Right.
Because in organizations and in ourselves, how many times have you heard, like, my people just don't think for themselves. I wish my people would think for themselves.
Yes.
I keep telling them to think for themselves. Well, if you're telling them to think for themselves, you need to actually help them discover how to think for themselves.
Yes, and exactly, and what their motivation is around it. So I think, on the boxes where you got questions, and then the third one over where it's got present, future, process.
Yeah.
What I find is most of us as human beings that are impatient, me included, but also my clients and companies and businesses or governments, we go, just give me the bottom line. What's the process? So people want to get to the process, and they're not always willing to take the time on the other items, on attitude or intent or the accountability. So those pieces are really the secret sauce that really allow the process to say, okay, now that I know what I want to be, yes, you can then go back and chunk it apart. If you want to, increase your revenue or change your business, then you can make the processes that, okay, start here, and then by Tuesday do this, by next Monday do this, by the following Thursday do this, and you can break down the whole process. That's normally what people want. Just tell me how to do it. But the other pieces that you've covered today and we've been covering is really the stuff that makes it then sticky. It makes it then work and flow and actually have legs under it and have substance under it. So I know a lot of times people think some of the stuff that you and I are talking about, I've heard people say, well, that sounds a little bit of a fluff, meaning attitude and mindset and all of that. But to me, it's one of the most important components of making the process really work to create effective long-term change.
100%, Steve. But this is a challenge with our minds. Our minds just want to know how to. And this is like when I work with clients on strategy and that, I talk about what must be accomplished, not how we're going to accomplish it, right? So and it's no different to like if you're a 5 and an 8, well, 8 must be accomplished. If you're worried about how to get to 5, let's get very clear on what an 8 looks like first, and then why that's so important to you, right? And before we even worry about how we're going to do it. Because I think once you're very clear on what the 8 looks like and clear as heck as why you want it, you know yourself and I know that when you've got your strong and powerful enough why, the how-to reveals itself.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
What happens if we're just working out how we're going to do it? We'll find some simpler process to it, and we might only get a 6 instead of an 8.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? And so in business and in life, it's the same thing. If you just jump straight to how are we going to do this, well, hang on, let's get very clear on what we want to do and why we want to do it first, and make sure we're very right on that.
Yeah.
Because then the how is the easy part.
Right. Well, and then you got to leave the how up to the universe. I mean, that's where then faith comes in play. That's where trust comes in play. And, you know, one of my favorite authors, we've talked about this before, but it's Paulo Coelho, who wrote The Alchemist. But one of the quotes says, once your mind is made up, the universe conspires towards your success. And that's when things start showing up and happening, that the how and all of that stuff of how it's going to get done, even though, yes, you can have a process, you have to then trust to allow things just to unfold and to be.
Yeah. Now, that's really interesting. And I know we're pretty at the time, but I'll throw this last challenge out because I agree with that statement, but I think there's something missing. And if you look at The Alchemist, and like whilst he's articulated, there's a step in the middle. So once you've set your mind on something, the universe does rally its forces. But what it rallies its forces is around you to test you first. Because I think what the universe does is it throws a whole bunch of crap at you to test you to see how badly you really want it.
Absolutely.
Right? And then it also helps you to develop, because like anything, if I want strength, does the universe give me strength? No, it gives me challenges to build strength.
Yeah.
Right? And so it tests you. And then once you pass the test, as I call it, then it rallies all its force around and goes, mate, here's everything. Take it. It's all yours.
Yes. It's like you have to earn your stripes along the way.
Yeah.
I talked about that in my first book, From Lead to Gold, which was played up on the word alchemy. But I had a quote in there after I played off of the Paulo Coelho quote is about resistance. What you're talking about is when the dream is big enough, then it's like breaking through the sound barrier. So breaking through resistance is the price you pay for the dream you say you want.
Yeah.
So that stuff that comes, and when you realize in this formula that you just showed, I plug then resistance right into it. So when I'm helping people plan business plans, life plans, processes, you have to plan resistance in there, that everything is absolutely going to not go the way you want. And then how's your attitude going to help you get through that process? Because breaking through those barriers, like you just said, gets you the fuel that you need to break through to the next level where things then look like rosy and blue skies. So I think that's a very good point about, we should hit on that some more next time when we get on our third session.
Yeah, absolutely. Because what you're talking about, like resistance, like how would this person think? Well, they would have resistance thinking, like so they would have some strength and tenacity, and they would have so how do I condition that? How do I build that up so that I handle that to behave in the way that I need to do? And I think that'd be a great thing for you to share some of that in or both of us together in the next session. So and I want to just certainly give quick credit to Donna Morris, Book Speakers Direct, by the way, here in Australia. Amazing organization who are busting the mold in speaking bureaus. You Book Speakers Direct, Steve, you should be talking to these guys. Eventually when we can get you down here in Australia and get you back on stage again.
Well, that's
Donna
how I
and Terry Morris, phenomenal. And she did mention earlier, but absolutely everyone has an opinion, and she loved the fact that you bring it in and then let it go. And then Donna's looking forward to the universe giving it to her now, which is great because they've paid their stripes and they've earned it. So Donna, I expect everything will be flowing your way in greater abundance than it already is. And thanks for tuning in. Okay, mate. So next Wednesday, same bad time, same bad channel.
Sounds good to me. Look forward to it.
Use the word bat with COVID going around, but anyway.
Well, thank you, everybody.
You're welcome, Donna. Yeah, okay, guys. So we'll drop the link in below from the first one on the live stream shortly, and Steve's in his LinkedIn and my LinkedIn as well. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in who did tune in, and Donna for your commentary. Thanks very much. And if anyone has any comments, please put them in there and we can bring it up for next week's session. But until then, Dave and Steve out.